All right, ready to dive deep. Today we're exploring something that's always happening inside you, even if you don't think about it much. Acid-base balance. We're going straight to the source, a physiology handout from Dr. Rasha Eldeeb. No textbook fluff here. We're getting to the core of it.
Exactly, right to the heart of how your body keeps this balance, this really delicate balance, and why it's so important.
It's not just an abstract science class, right? This is about pH, that number that tells us if something's acidic or basic. And get this, your blood's pH, it has to stay in a super narrow range between 7.37 and 7.44. Even a tiny, tiny deviation can have some pretty wild effects on your body.
Yeah, it's a tightrope walk, but instead of falling off, you might get muscle spasms, even seizures if your pH goes too far out of whack in either direction, even coma.
Coma. Okay, now I'm paying attention. But why is pH so important? It's not like we're, I don't know, walking chemistry experiments, are we?
Right. But think of it this way. Our bodies are basically a collection of complex chemical reactions. And pH, it impacts all of them, starting with how our proteins, how they're shaped, and how they work.
Proteins, you mean those building blocks of, well, basically everything, right?
Exactly. Enzymes, hormones, antibodies, all proteins, and they're very picky about their environment. If the pH changes even a little, their structures, they get all warped, like a delicate origami creation getting crumpled up.
Ah, okay. And if their shape's off, they can't do their job. So it's not just the acid itself, it's how it messes with everything else in our bodies.
Precisely. Think about potassium, that mineral that keeps your heart beating right. Well, pH, it affects how potassium is distributed in your body, and even small changes can disrupt your heart rhythm.
Okay, that is scary stuff. So we've established that pH is super important, but I got to admit, the pH scale has always been a bit of a mystery to me. Can we break that down a bit?
Absolutely. It all boils down to hydrogen ions or H plus ion. The more H plus you have, the more acidic a solution is and the lower its pH. But here's the thing. It's a logarithmic scale.
Logarithmic. Oh, high school math flashbacks. Do I need to dig out my calculator?
No calculator needed. Just think of it like this. Every change of 1 unit on that pH scale means a 10-fold change in H plus concentration. So urine, with a pH around 4.4, it's actually 1,000 times more acidic than your blood plasma, which sits at about 7.4.
1,000 times. That's mind-blowing. I mean, our kidneys are filtering some serious acid to keep our blood at that perfect level. But wait, where's all this acid coming from in the first place? I don't, walk around feeling acidic.
That's a great question, and you're not alone in thinking that. But the truth is, our bodies are constantly producing acid. It's a byproduct of all the amazing things our bodies do. Think of it like a car engine. You need fuel to run, but you produce exhaust fumes.
Okay, I'm getting the analogy. So what are our body's exhaust fumes?
Well, the biggest one is actually carbon dioxide, CO2. It's produced when we break down food for energy. And we're talking a massive amount, like 2.6 liters of concentrated hydrochloric acid every single day.
2.6 liters of acid. Whoa, that's a lot of exhaust.
Thankfully, most of that CO2, we breathe it out. That's one reason why breathing is so vital. It's not just about taking in oxygen. It's also about getting rid of that acidic CO2.
Oh, breathing just got a whole new meaning for me. So that's CO2, but what about other sources of acid?
Well, breaking down certain foods, especially proteins, also creates acids, like sulfuric acid and phosphoric acid. And these are called fixed acids because, unlike CO2, we can't just breathe them out.
Fixed acids, that sounds a little ominous. What happens to those?
Our bodies have some pretty incredible ways to neutralize them. We have these things called buffers. They're like the first responders of the pH world. They're mixtures of substances that can quickly, soak up any excess acid or alkali. They prevent those drastic pH shifts we talked about earlier.
So buffers are like little tiny pH sponges constantly working.
Exactly. And we have different types of buffers working in different parts of our bodies. One of the most important ones is the bicarbonate buffer system, especially active outside our cells.
Bicarbonate, like baking soda.
That's right. And just like baking soda can, neutralize vinegar in your kitchen, bicarbonate helps neutralize acid in your body.
Oh, that's cool. I like that connection.
Yeah.
But our buffers are only like defense against these pH swings?
No, we have another quick trick. Our breathing. Remember how we said CO2 is acidic? Well, when we breathe faster, we exhale more CO2, which helps raise our pH if it's getting too low. And the opposite can happen too. If you hold your breath too long, you retain CO2 and your pH can drop. That's called respiratory acidosis.
So like when you get anxious and start hyperventilating, that rapid breathing is actually messing with your pH balance.
Exactly. It can lead to something called respiratory alkalosis, where your blood becomes too alkaline.
So breathing is like this rapid response system for pH balance. That's fascinating. But what about those fixed acids? The ones we can't just breathe out. What happens to them?
That's where the heavy hitters come in, our kidneys. They're the ultimate pH regulators, constantly filtering our blood and fine-tuning its pH. It's amazing how precise they are.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. Let's hear how those kidneys work their magic.
Well, for that, we need to dive a little deeper into how the kidney is built, specifically these tiny filtering units called nephrons.
Sounds like we're about to get microscopic. This is getting good. But I think we'll save that kidney deep dive for part 2.
For now, listeners, chew on this. Your body is a constant battleground between acid and alkali, but you have these incredible defense systems working tirelessly to keep you balanced.
Welcome back to our exploration of acid-base balance. Before we get to those amazing kidneys, let's recap a bit. We talked about how our bodies, they produce acid just as a natural part of living. And those first lines of defense, those buffers in our breathing, they help keep things in check. Right, like a tag team of pH regulators, always ready to jump in and neutralize those acidic threats.
Exactly. But for the long game, we need something a bit more powerful, and that's where the kidneys come in. They might not be as fast as buffers or breathing changes, but they have this incredible ability to completely get rid of, eliminate excess acid from our bodies.
Okay, I'm ready for the kidney deep dive. You mentioned these things called nephrons. What are those exactly?
Imagine like millions of tiny little filtering stations all packed into your kidneys. Each nephron, it's like a mini processing plant, constantly filtering your blood, deciding what to keep, what to get rid of. And when it comes to pH balance, they play a starring role.
So each nephron is like a tiny little pH warrior fighting to keep our acid levels in check.
That's a great way to put it. And they have some pretty ingenious tricks up their sleeves. Remember how we talked about the proximal convoluted tubule, or PCT, where most of the hydrogen ion excretion happens?
Yeah, the sodium-hydrogen swap meet, right? Sodium gets a VIP pass back into the bloodstream, and hydrogen sneaks out with it.
Exactly. But that exchange, it's not just about getting rid of hydrogen. It's also about bringing back something really important, bicarbonate.
Bicarbonate, our trusty buffer friend.
The very same, you see. For every hydrogen ion that's secreted into the nephron, a bicarbonate ion is reabsorbed back into the blood. And a lot of that bicarbonate, it's actually made right there in kidney cells.
Wait, so our kidneys are actually making bicarbonate. That's impressive. They're not just filtering. They're producing essential ingredients for pH balance.
Exactly. It shows how crucial bicarbonate is to this whole system. And it gets even more fascinating. The sodium that's being reabsorbed, it's not just coming from filtration, it's also coming from the breakdown of, you guessed it, sodium bicarbonate.
So it's like a recycling program for bicarbonate, constantly breaking it down and rebuilding it to keep that perfect balance.
Precisely. And this process in the PCT, it's super efficient, handling most of the hydrogen excretion. But like any good system, it has its limits.
Limits? What do you mean?
Well, the PCT can only pump out so much hydrogen before it hits this concentration gradient wall. Imagine, you're at a packed concert trying to get out while everyone else is pushing in.
No, been there.
So how do those hydrogen ions escape that crowded PCT?
Yeah, how do they?
That's where those specialized cells in the distal convoluted tubule, or DCT, and the collecting ducts step in. They're like the super-powered pumps of the kidney world. They can move hydrogen ions even against that crowded gradient.
So they're like the backup singers who step in to hit those high notes when the lead vocalist needs a break.
I like that analogy. They're essential for fine-tuning the pH of our urine, making sure it doesn't get too acidic. And to make things even more efficient, the DCT and collecting ducts, they use different buffer systems to help neutralize any lingering hydrogen ions.
Different buffer systems, like a whole other team of pH defenders. Our bodies really have this covered from all angles.
Absolutely. One of the key players here is the phosphate buffer system. It's especially good at its job because its pKa, you can think of it like its ideal working temperature. It's closer to the pH of urine.
So it's like having the right tool for the job. Phosphate buffers are perfect for that final pH adjustment in the urine.
Exactly. And let's not forget about our friend ammonia, which is also made in the kidneys, mostly in the PCT.
Right. Ammonia, the acid sponge. So we have these kidney cells making bicarbonate, pumping out hydrogen, and even producing ammonia, all for pH balance. Pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
It is. It shows how incredibly complex and resilient our bodies are. But even with all these systems working perfectly together, things can still go wrong.
Right. We talked about those acid-base imbalances, acidosis and alkalosis. How common are those, and what kind of things can trigger them?
Well, they're actually more common than you might think, and they can range from, mild to severe. Sometimes they're caused by temporary situations, like a tough workout that produces a lot of lactic acid, leading to metabolic acidosis.
Or, like when I climb a mountain and start hyperventilating, that can cause respiratory alkalosis, right?
Exactly, but sometimes these imbalances, they're a sign of something more serious, like kidney disease or diabetes. In those cases, the kidneys, they just can't keep up with the acid, leading to more persistent problems.
So it's not just about preventing those extreme cases of acidosis or alkalosis. It's about making sure our bodies are working optimally all the time.
Exactly, and while our bodies are really good at regulating pH, we can also help them out by being mindful of what we eat.
Diet. So what we eat can actually affect our pH balance. Tell me more.
That's a great question because it turns out that the food we eat, it plays a surprisingly big role in this whole acid-base balancing act. And that's what we're going to talk about next after a short break.
Okay, can't wait to hear more.
We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the deep dive for the final part of our exploration into acid-base balance. We've been on quite a journey, haven't we? Through all those intricate systems our bodies use to keep that pH right where it needs to be. From those quick-acting buffers to the kidneys, working hard behind the scenes, it's amazing. But you left us with a pretty interesting question. How does what we eat, how does our diet play into all of this?
It's a fascinating connection and one that I think a lot of people don't really think about. The foods we eat, they can leave behind either acidic or alkaline residues. And these residues, they can either add to or help neutralize the acid our bodies are already dealing with.
So it's not just about the acid our bodies make naturally. We're also taking in these acidic or alkaline things through our food. It's like we're adding ingredients to our own internal chemistry set.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. And just like a chemist would carefully balance their ingredients, we can kind of influence our body's pH by choosing the right foods.
Okay, I'm all ears. So, which foods are the acidic bad guys and which ones are the alkaline heroes?
Well, let's start with the usual suspects on the acidic side. Protein-rich foods, things like meat, poultry, fish, eggs, dairy products, they tend to leave behind those acidic residues. And grains, they fall into this category too.
So the things that make up a lot of people's diets, they could actually be contributing to a more acidic environment inside us.
That's right, but before you go and swear off steak and bread forever, remember, balance is key here. On the other side, we have our alkaline champions, and fruits and vegetables, they're the real stars here. They tend to leave those alkaline residues that can help balance out the acidic load.
So it's not about cutting out acidic foods completely. It's about making sure we're getting enough of those alkaline powerhouses to keep everything in check. It's like a seesaw. You need weight on both sides to stay balanced.
Exactly. And don't forget about those incredible regulatory systems we've been talking about. Our buffers, our lungs, our kidneys, they're constantly working to keep that pH in that sweet spot no matter what we eat.
All right, so even if I, have a burger and fries, my body's not going to suddenly become super acidic.
No, not at all. But over time, if you eat a consistently acidic diet, one that's heavy on those acid-forming foods and not enough of the alkaline ones, it can put extra stress on those systems. It's like pushing your car engine too hard for too long. It might still run, but you're wearing it down faster.
I get it. So our bodies are adaptable, but giving those pH regulators a break by choosing our foods carefully is a good idea.
Definitely, but is there any real evidence that all this matters? I mean, if our bodies are so good at regulating pH, do we really need to worry about how acidic our diet is?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It's something researchers are still looking into, and what they're finding is pretty interesting. Some studies have linked a more alkaline diet to better bone health. It
Hmm.
seems that when your body is constantly dealing with too much acid, it might actually pull calcium from your bones to help neutralize it,
Hmm.
which could weaken them over time.
Wow, so our bones could be like internal buffers, sacrificing themselves to keep that pH balanced. That's a pretty good reason to eat more fruits and veggies.
Right. And there's also some evidence that suggests an alkaline diet might help with preventing kidney stones. Those stones, they form when certain minerals get too concentrated in the urine. And guess what plays a big role in regulating the concentration of those minerals?
Our kidneys, those amazing pH balancers.
You got it. So while more research is definitely needed, there's growing evidence that what we eat can impact our pH balance, and that can potentially affect our overall health.
This has been an incredible deep dive into acid-base balance. We started with those tiny hydrogen ions causing trouble, then we explored those amazing systems that keep them in check. And now we've even seen how the food we eat fits into this whole intricate puzzle.
It's really a testament to how interconnected our bodies are. Everything from our cells to our organs to what we eat, it all plays a part in keeping this delicate balance.
So, as we wrap up this fascinating journey, What's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from this?
I'd say pay attention to what your body's telling you. Those little signs, feeling tired, muscles feeling weak, changes in your breathing, those could be hints that your pH is off. And while your body has those amazing systems to handle it, you can help them out by making smart choices. Feed your body a variety of foods, especially those alkaline superstars from the fruit and veggie aisle. And if you think something's not right, don't hesitate to talk to your doctor.
Perfectly said. Well, on that note, I want to thank you, our expert guest, for taking us on this amazing journey through the fascinating world of acid-base balance. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on the deep dive. We'll see you next time, ready to explore another corner of the universe with Inside and Out.